Hey guys, welcome to Chef Grace's Place. So today I'm going to be making some mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are one of my favorite foods. When I was a kid growing up, people would ask me what my favorite food was and I would say mashed potatoes. They would look at me like I was crazy. But my dad would make best mashed potatoes and he would use a ricer, which is a smaller version of a food mill. I don't have a food mill or a ricer. If you have one, definitely use it if you're making mashed potatoes. It makes a great texture for the mashed potatoes. But since I don't have one, I'm going to just use my KitchenAid with a paddle attachment. Another great thing about this recipe, aside from salt and pepper, it's really 3 ingredients: sour cream, scallions, and potatoes. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to peel the potatoes. Once I'm done peeling the potatoes, I'm going to put them in the water for now. This is going to be the pot that I'm going to boil my potatoes in. And to ensure that the potatoes cook faster, I'm going to quarter them before I put them on the stove. So this way the potatoes will cook in about 10 minutes. This works because you're increasing the surface area so the heat can get to all the parts of the potato a lot quicker than if it was just a whole potato like this. And some people like their mashed potatoes with potato skins in them. I like that when it's like a red potato or new potatoes. Usually with the russet potatoes, I peel the skin off. This recipe also works really well with the new potatoes. Another advantage of peeling over a bowl is if it slips out of your hand, you're not doing it over the garbage, so you don't lose a potato. Once you have all your potatoes peeled, we're going to move on to quartering them. But as you're quartering them, you also want to take a look at them and see if there's any impurities that you need to cut off. For instance, maybe there's a giant eye on them. An eye is where the potato is starting to sprout. They call it an eye because when you peel it, if you look at it, it actually does look like an eye. So another thing to think about when you're looking for damage on your potatoes is that green potatoes contain solanine, which is a mild toxin, and although it's really not going to do some serious damage, it could cause an upset stomach. So you would have to eat like a lot of potatoes, green potatoes, to get seriously ill. But as a general rule, try to avoid those potatoes. So we're looking for any big bruises or any thing that looks like rot that's going through the potato. We either want to cut that off and only use the good part, or if there's not enough of the potato, just get rid of that potato. So as I do that, I'm going to quarter my potatoes. Also, when you use your peeler, right, this part of the peeler, you'll see it's usually like a little scoop. It's to get those eyes out. So if you have any big eyes, you can use it to just go around it and it gets the eye out of your potato. Okay, so when I'm chopping my potato, I'm looking for them to be all about the same size. I want my potato to cook in 10 to 15 minutes, so this is the size that I'm going for. I think one of the most interesting facts I learned recently is that, growing up, we ate a lot of potatoes, and as most people who I identify as Irish American would tell you, I love potatoes, I'm Irish, right? So one thing I learned about recently is that although, many potato dishes are very famous for being Irish, and that the Irish grew a lot of potatoes, which we know about from history, is that the potato is actually from Peru, which is cool. Kind of reminds me of the tomato and how that got brought over from South America too. So, it's just one of the ways that food shows that we're all connected. Alright, so you want to make sure your potatoes are covered with the water. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this, get it on the stove. So that should take 10 or 15 minutes once it's come to a boil. And in the meantime, I'm gonna wash all this stuff, and then I'm gonna cut up my scallions into this bowl. I did maybe like half a teaspoon of really coarse sea salt. I've gotten into container gardening pretty seriously recently. I've been using the channel Epic Gardening, which is where I learned how to do this, because I would always see like videos where you just put the scallion in the ground and it regrows, but there's actually a little bit of technique done to it. So I'll link that in the description of this video in case you're interested in it. Even though those plants were from the grocery store, they're way more fragrant and they have so much more flavor than they did when I bought them at the grocery store. And a lot of that is because, you know, they're grown in soil with different nutrients, but also you're getting it super fresh. I literally walked out onto my patio, cut them, and now they're here. So you get maximum flavor that way. So I washed my cutting board and my knife and everything, and this is the same bowl I used with the potato skins and the raw potatoes. So make sure you wash that if you're gonna reuse it, because raw potatoes do have bacteria, and these scallions are gonna go in to the final product, so we don't want to mix raw with ready to eat. Okay, no cross-contamination. So this is a hack I love. Usually I'm, you know, oh, that's silly, like cooking hacks, but you don't want to get out that cutting board for scallions. Cutting them with scissors is nice and easy. Just make sure that your kitchen scissors are nice and clean before you do that. So literally just cut it. And I try to go pretty thin, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I love scallions. You don't want them like super long because you don't want them to get stuck in your teeth and you don't want to be chewing on them in the mashed potatoes. But I like a little bit of texture. So I'm doing this while my water's boiling. I also have a colander in the sink for when the potatoes are ready, so I can just dump them into there before I put them into the mixer. I also have my sour cream out, and I also have salt and pepper ready too, just to get everything together. You want to make sure you're ready for the next step. So I think if you're one of those people who loves sour cream and onion potato chips, you're really gonna like these mashed potatoes. I also really like roasted garlic mashed potatoes too, but these scallions are so nice. So I can tell these potatoes aren't done yet. My potatoes are just starting to come to a boil because they're not fork tender, which means without too much pressure I should be able to push the fork through the potato, which is not happening right now. Alright, so my potatoes have been boiling about 10 minutes. Maybe a little longer. I was reading a book, so. But I can easily grab that potato with a fork. So we're ready to strain these into the colander and start making our mashed potatoes. So while your potatoes are still nice and hot, you want to get them into the mixer. This is going to help flavors come out of the onions and also break them apart and mix them up easier. If we were putting butter in this recipe, it would also be important because it would help melt the butter. But I just like to use sour cream because sour cream helps hold in moisture. And it's kind of somewhere in between, you know, adding heavy cream to your mashed potatoes and adding butter. This container was probably about 2/3 full. So it's 1.5 pounds. So I'd say it's about a pound. Also, you can find some pretty good sales on sour cream. And sour cream, you know, is already sour. So it takes a long time for sour cream to go bad. So once I got all my sour cream in there, I'm gonna add in my scallions. Once I have all my ingredients in, I'm just going to put in my pile attachment. So make sure when you got your ingredients in there, this is pretty full, that you just start it on stir and you have your hand on the power so you can turn it off if you have to. As you can see, the potatoes break up super fast, and you know, at this point I want to taste it, and I put salt in with the water, so I'm just checking to see how much salt I need, and I'm gonna add some black pepper too. Okay, so I tasted it. I'm gonna add my pepper. And it's always better to go with a fresh cracked pepper when you can, especially for mashed potatoes. It does need a touch more salt. So when you're satisfied with the seasoning, you just give it a quick mix up high to break everything up, but then turn it off immediately because you don't want your mashed potatoes to get gummy. You just want them to be nice and fluffy, which is the reason why the food mill works so much better when it comes to texture. So once you mix up your mashed potatoes, ready to serve. A lot of things you can serve with it, so it's great for meal prepping. And the sour cream really helps it hold in the moisture. So thanks for stopping by Grace's place, and I hope to see you again soon. Well, once we're done. Hey!
Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I'm almost done.
Okay.
I'm so hungry.
Well, I'm making mashed potatoes. I'm shooting the video now, so.
One second. What'd you say?
I'm shooting the video for mashed potatoes now, so you'll have some mashed potatoes when you come home. You eat it with borscht.
Sounds good.
Be on camera and record you.
Juice.